She never imagined a stupid bet would rewrite her entire life. It started as a joke, one careless laugh too many at a rooftop party full of people who had never struggled a day in their lives. Ava Cross was known for winning everything: debates, promotions, arguments, and even hearts she never planned to keep. Confident, sharp-tongued, and allergic to responsibility, she thrived on control. So when her friends dared her, mocked her, really, to prove she could survive a real life, she scoffed. "Name it," she said, wine glass raised, already sure of victory. That's when the bet landed: lose this round, and you move in with a single dad for 3 months. No assistance. No luxury. No quitting. Laughter erupted. Ava laughed too. She lost. 2 days later, she stood on a quiet suburban street, designer heels sinking slightly into cracked pavement, staring at a small, weathered house with chipped blue paint and a crooked mailbox. Inside lived Daniel Reed, a widowed single father of 2, a man she had never met, chosen at random through a local housing program her company funded. She expected pity. Maybe gratitude. What she didn't expect was silence. Daniel opened the door with tired eyes and a guarded posture, his shirt wrinkled, his hands rough from work. He didn't smile. He didn't fawn. He simply said, "Kids, she's here," and turned away. That was the first shock. The second came fast. There were rules. Strict ones. Ava would share chores, respect bedtime, follow schedules, and stay out of Daniel's parenting unless invited. The house ran like a fragile machine: one wrong move and everything would collapse. The kids, 8-year-old Leo and 5-year-old Mia, watched her like she was a storm cloud that might ruin their sky. That first night, Ava lay awake on a stiff couch, listening to the house breathe, hearing whispered laughter from the kids' room as Daniel read them a story in a soft voice that didn't match his hardened exterior. Something twisted in her chest: confusion, maybe irritation. She told herself it was temporary. But days turned into weeks, and the illusion she carried shattered piece by piece. Daniel woke at 4:30 every morning, packed lunches, worked construction all day, cooked, cleaned, helped with homework, and never once complained. Ava, who had never washed her own dishes, found herself scrubbing dried cereal off bowls, folding tiny socks, and learning the weight of silence at a dinner table where grief still lingered. One night, after Mia woke crying from a nightmare, Ava froze, unsure what to do, until Daniel walked in, scooped his daughter up, and whispered, "Daddy's here. I've got you." Ava turned away so no one would see her eyes burning. That night, she realized something terrifying: she wasn't winning this bet. She was losing control. And Daniel. He noticed the change. The woman who once rolled her eyes at responsibility now stayed up late fixing a broken backpack strap. The woman who mocked routine now defended bedtime like it was sacred. He didn't thank her. He didn't soften. He just watched. And slowly, against his will, something inside him shifted too. If this story is already pulling you in, don't forget to subscribe, because what happens next changes everything. The real shock didn't come with an argument or a dramatic confession, it came quietly, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Ava had lost track of the days. The bet no longer felt like a sentence, it felt like a life she had accidentally stepped into and didn't know how to leave. When Leo got sick at school, it was Ava who left a meeting early, heart racing, hands shaking as she signed him out. Daniel arrived minutes later, soaked from rain, eyes wide with fear, and then relief when he saw Ava holding his son. Neither spoke. That silence said more than words ever could. That night, after the kids fell asleep, Daniel finally broke. He told her about his wife, the accident, the phone call, the way his world collapsed in under 10 seconds. He admitted he never planned to survive, only to endure. Ava listened, truly listened, for the first time in her life. She didn't interrupt. She didn't offer solutions. She just stayed. That's when he shocked her, by saying, "You don't belong here." Not cruelly. Honestly. "This life will eat you alive." Ava surprised herself by answering, "It already changed me." Days later, the bet ended. Ava's friends waited for her return, champagne ready, expecting a dramatic story to laugh about. Instead, Ava stood in Daniel's kitchen, contract in hand, realizing she couldn't leave. That's when the final shock hit Daniel. Ava revealed the truth. She hadn't just lost a bet. She had chosen him. She had already turned down a promotion that would move her overseas. She had arranged funding to renovate the house anonymously. And she planned to stay, not as a visitor, not as a prize, but as someone who loved his children and respected his pain. Daniel didn't believe her at first. He accused her of charity, of pity. Ava shook, tears streaming, and said the words that shattered him, "You didn't save me. Your life did." When Mia hugged Ava's leg and asked, "You're not leaving, right?" Daniel broke. The man who had carried grief like armor finally let it fall. Love didn't arrive like fireworks, it arrived like peace. Months later, the house stood freshly painted, laughter louder than grief, routine stronger than fear. And one quiet evening, Daniel placed a small, simple ring on Ava's finger, not as a grand gesture, but as a promise. The woman who once feared responsibility had found purpose. The men who once feared loss had found hope. And it all started with a bet that neither of them truly lost. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you believe in second chances, subscribe to the channel. Because the next story might change your heart too. The first real crack appeared when the world outside their quiet little house finally noticed what was happening inside it. Ava had been living with Daniel and the kids for nearly 6 months now, long past the bet, long past any obligation, and yet nothing about their life felt temporary anymore. Mornings were a rhythm, coffee brewing while Daniel packed lunches, Ava braiding Mia's hair with clumsy patience, Leo pretending he wasn't smiling while she quizzed him before school. Evenings were louder now, laughter echoing through hallways that once felt hollow. But peace has a way of attracting storms. It came in the form of a letter. Thick. Official. Addressed to Ava. Daniel didn't mean to read it, but the logo at the top made his chest tighten. Her company. The same world she claimed she had left behind. Ava went pale when she opened it. It wasn't an invitation. It was a demand. Her board had discovered where she was living, who she was living with, and they weren't amused. They wanted her back, immediately. Not just back, but promoted. A global position. Power. Money. Prestige. Everything she once lived for. The catch was simple and cruel: her current lifestyle was a liability. A single dad. 2 children. A narrative that didn't fit the image they wanted. Daniel watched Ava fold the letter with shaking hands, and for the first time since she walked into his life, fear wasn't about losing her, it was about being the reason she might lose herself. That night, Ava barely spoke. She went through the motions, helped with homework, kissed the kids goodnight, but her eyes were somewhere else. Daniel felt it. The distance. The unspoken truth. When the kids were asleep, he finally asked, "Are you going to leave?" Ava didn't answer right away. Silence stretched like a knife between them. "I don't know," she whispered. That was all it took. Daniel nodded slowly, swallowing the ache rising in his throat. He didn't beg. He didn't argue. He just said, "Then you should go." The words shattered Ava. "That's not what I want," she cried. "But it might be what you need," he replied. He told her he had spent his entire life watching people leave, his wife to death, friends to discomfort, family to indifference. He refused to be the anchor that drowned her future. Ava slept in the guest room that night, tears soaking the pillow, realizing that love wasn't just about staying, it was about being willing to let go. 2 days later, she packed a bag. Not everything. Just enough to hurt. Mia clung to her leg, sobbing. Leo turned away, fists clenched. Daniel stood in the doorway, unmoving. Ava knelt, promised the kids she loved them, promised she'd come back, but promises had broken this family before. When she left, the house felt emptier than it ever had. Weeks passed. Daniel tried to return to the way things were before Ava, but the kids noticed. The silence was heavier now because they knew what laughter sounded like. Daniel found himself staring at the spot Ava used to sit, hearing her voice in his head. Meanwhile, Ava sat in glass offices thousands of miles away, surrounded by applause and power, and felt nothing. She watched families through car windows, checked her phone obsessively, reread drawings Mia had made for her. The final shock came when the board praised her clean break and joked about how easily she had walked away from that little experiment. Something snapped. Ava stood up mid-meeting, hands shaking, and realized the truth she had been avoiding. She hadn't lost a bet. She had found a home, and abandoned it. And this time, she wasn't going to make the same mistake twice. If you feel this turning point, this moment where everything hangs in the balance, subscribe now, because what Ava does next will leave you breathless. Ava returned on a quiet afternoon, the kind of afternoon that doesn't announce miracles. There were no bags of luggage, no dramatic entrance, just one small suitcase and a heart pounding hard enough to hurt. Daniel was in the backyard teaching Leo how to sand a piece of wood, the rhythmic scrape filling the air. When he felt it, that strange pull, like the world had tilted. He looked up, and there she was, standing by the fence, eyes wet, shoulders tense, as if she might disappear if he blinked. For a second, neither of them moved. Then Mia saw her. The scream that tore from the little girl's chest stopped time. She ran so fast she tripped, and Ava dropped to her knees just in time to catch her. Leo followed, pretending he wasn't crying, arms wrapped tight around Ava's waist. Daniel stood frozen, chest burning, anger and relief colliding so violently he couldn't tell which would win. Ava looked up at him, voice shaking. She didn't apologize right away. She didn't explain. She said the only thing that mattered. I came back because this is my life. Not the job. Not the title. This. Daniel wanted to believe her, but fear has a long memory. He asked her why now, why she hadn't stayed the first time. Ava told him everything, how she had walked out of the boardroom, how she resigned publicly, how she refused their money and their silence, how she exposed the truth about the company's image games and power threats. She told him she chose uncertainty over emptiness, love over applause. Daniel's hands shook as he listened. He had spent years believing love always demanded payment in pain. But Ava wasn't asking him to save her, she was asking to stand beside him. That night, after the kids were asleep, Daniel admitted something he had never said aloud: he was terrified to be happy again. Terrified that if he let himself love Ava fully, he'd lose her the same way he lost his wife. Ava took his hands and said, "I'm not asking you to forget her. I'm asking you to let me love the parts of you she never got to see." That broke him. He cried, quietly, completely, for the first time in years. Days turned into healing. The house felt warmer, safer, like it was finally becoming what it was meant to be. Then came the final shock. One evening, Daniel found a folder on the kitchen table. Legal documents. At first, his stomach dropped, fear returning fast. But as he read, his breath caught. Ava had set up a trust for the kids. Not as charity. Not as insurance. As commitment. College funds. Medical coverage. A future she planned to be part of whether Daniel ever married her or not. When he confronted her, angry and overwhelmed, she said softly, "I lost my parents young. I know what uncertainty does to a child. I won't let them feel it again." That night, after the kids were asleep, Daniel took Ava outside under the old backyard light. His voice shook as he told her she had already done more than anyone ever had for him or his children. He didn't have a ring. He didn't have a speech. He had truth. "I don't know how to promise forever without fear," he said. "But I know I don't want to live another day without you here." Ava smiled through tears. She said yes before he even finished. Inside, Mia whispered to Leo, "I told you she'd come back." The bet that started it all was never about winning or losing. It was about two broken lives colliding at the exact moment they were ready to heal. And if this chapter made you believe in second chances, in choosing love even when it's terrifying, subscribe to the channel, because the next story might remind you that sometimes, the bravest thing you can do, is come home.